Hi everybody, for this fly tying tutorial I'll be tying a parachute hare's ear. The hare's ear without the parachute is just an absolute all-around fish catching fly. It has some great characteristics, and I did alter the original pattern just a hair. I'll be talking about what I'm using for my tailing fibers in a bit, but it's the similar body. And I'll just slide this around so you can take a look at the bottom. And I do have some wire ribbing, and I'll talk exactly about the coloration in a little bit. But this hare's ear is just an all-around fish-catching fly. It's really buggy looking. It can represent caddis, some mayflies. It really just does, it hits everything in the gamut, especially for that color. And I'm using a really, a natural color for the hare's ear dubbing. By adding the parachute, which is just a light dun, almost a grizzly variant hackle, it brings this fly to the top. Whenever you get to the top of the water column, then we have a couple other things going on. This fly could represent a nymph that somehow, got dislodged. It could represent a nymph that now has risen and it's about to emerge into the next stage within its process. So there's a few things that are going on that could really be beneficial for you as a fly fisherman to attempt this. Without a doubt, it's a buggy fly, and as you watch me tie this today, really keep that in mind, that you want to keep looking at this thing and saying to yourself, how can I make this buggier? So when I get into this entire process, I'll be tying in this parachute post first, then I'll be going with the tailing fibers, the ribbing, I'll dub the body, then finish off with my parachute, and then I will add a little more dubbing at the head to complete this fly. I'll be tying this fly today on an Allen fly fishing hook. It's a D103BL. It's a barbless. This will be a size 16, but you can tie this anywhere between the sizes of 12 and 22. So let me get everything reset here, and we'll be tying the parachute hare's ear. All right, let's start tying this parachute hare's ear. My thread is an 8/0 dark brown. I really like this dark brown color. It makes for a great color to finish the head of this fly. For the majority of the body, it's covered, so we don't have to worry too much about it. I'm going to be using poly yarn for the parachute post. I like this dun colored poly yarn. There's really a lot of it. I'm going to trim a little bit of it out. While I'm trimming it, I will mention that I like some other high-vis colors. However, on this pattern, it's a size 16 on this Allen fly fishing hook, and I don't have to worry so much about seeing it on the water. It is relatively easy to see this pattern. All right, after I have some of this poly yarn trimmed out of here, this is what it looks like. And it's still just a little bit more than I want. So I will typically pull out some of these fibers and just throw those away or just stack them for the next fly. Then I have a couple different options to tie this poly yarn post in. I can go under the hook and lock it in that way, or I can place it directly underneath my thread, form the V, grab it, and have it so it's locked in on top. It's really personal preference. Simply because I had it this way, that's the way I'm going to do it. So I want to lock it in place. Just put a couple wraps in front and behind it. I put a quick half hitch. Then I'm just going to parachute around. So if you're looking at this post from the top, I'm going around it in a helicopter fashion. Just locking these fibers together and basically creating a base or a foundation for my hackle, which will be coming around this in a little bit. Now we have a couple options when we're putting the hackle on this fly. I can actually tie the hackle on right now, or I can wait until the very end, and it's truly personal preference. The smart thing to do is put it on now, because then as I'm bringing my dubbing forward, I don't have to redub and be concerned about where that dubbing goes. So I will I'll show you what you could do at this point, but I'll be actually putting this parachute feather on later. But you could attach this right now, because I'm using a long saddle feather and it would just be hanging out there. I'm really not going to do that at this time. I'm just going to pull that parachute post forward, wrap to the middle, and then stop. All right, next time I grab a grouse tail section, I'm going to turn it over, and they have some great feathers on the back. These feathers really show some awesome modeling, and the best part about them is that they're quite webby. So I'll pull out a feather that I've already used a few times. Here is that feather, and I'm going to grab some of these fibers that are just marabou looking fibers. They are awesome fibers. They make for great tail sections because they just really move around the water. So I want to pull out a section of them, have around 6 or 7 of those pieces in there. I'm just going to pull it straight off, tear it off, and then line it up with my hook. Now to line this tail section up, I basically want to ensure that the tips of the tail are at the bend and they go the whole way across the shank of the hook. So that's the length I want. So I'm going to place it on top. Then with my left hand, I'm going to reach in and stop it where I want these to go. So now I'm placing that tail section directly at the back. So at this point, that's where I want them to start to go off the hook. I'm going to just try to pinch quickly, get a few of those pinched down, then let go and just double check that they're the length I want. They are. So I'm just going to wrap back a few times. I'm going to stop about halfway back. At that point, I'll trim off their butt sections. And then I'm going to tie in my copper wire. Now I'm not going to be using copper wire. I'll show you a couple options. One great option is ultra wire small in hot orange. Really has a great look to it. Gives it that October caddis style look. You can also use the copper, which is just, you know, truly the basic and the venerable copper color that really seems to be put on this pattern a lot. Today I'm going to be using the hot yellow in size small. This color really just seems to pop from it. I also like to fish this pattern for brookies as well, and I'm not sure if this ribbing does anything more, but in my opinion it does, so that's why I'm going to choose to use it. To place this wire on, I'm just going to place it on top and a little bit leaning my way of this shank, and I want to make sure it's about a millimeter back from that parachute post. Once I have it locked in the right spot, I'm just going to wrap forward a couple to ensure that it's locked, and then go back over, wrapping back towards the tail. I'm going to wrap back to nearly the point where my barb would be and stop directly above that. Again, this is a barbless hook. This is the Allen Fly Fishing Hook 103BL. It's nice because it's barbless. The other nice feature of this hook, and I didn't mention this originally, is that this 103BL is a dry fly and a light nymph hook. Since this is a parachute, you want this in the post, and this hook just gives you just enough weight to get you right in the film of the water whenever you're fishing. All right, to bring my thread back forward, I want to first just coat it with a little bit of Hare's ear plus dubbing. This is made by Hareline. This is the #1. It's got just a little bit of flash in it, plus it's the natural dubbing. I'm going to dub my thread. I do want to have less dubbing at the back near my tail, so I'm just going to ensure that I just put touches on at the back, and I will let it get a little heavier as I wrap forward. I'm going to wrap the whole way to the post. I would like to stop directly before the post because that's where I'm going to be tying off my my ribbing. If I go a little past, that's not a big deal because there is going to be dubbing the whole way past this post. So if you do go past, don't worry about it. I'm just going to stop right at the post though. At this point I'll bring my yellow ribbing up. So I'm just going to try to ensure that it's spaced out evenly. I don't want to bring it down any bit past this post. I'm just going to lock it in with a couple wraps directly before the post. And I'm going to trim it. I do want to mention that I'm trimming it with the scissors that I've been trimming everything else in this video. However, one of my buddies, Tim Abbott, yelled at me after watching one of my videos because he saw me trimming my wire with my same scissors. And I do want to mention to everybody, because I didn't think of this before, I actually do trim my wire with other scissors. However, for the sake of these videos, it's easier to just use one set of scissors the entire time. Tim, I am sorry, but I do use 2 pairs, but that was a great catch in the video, so thanks for reminding me to mention that. All right, it's at this point I'm going to tie on my parachute and my hackle for my parachute, I should say. This is a really nice, it's a light grizzly variant dun color. I'm just going to simply lock this in with around 4 or 5 wraps behind it and a couple directly in front of the post. I don't have to worry about trimming it if I do it that way. Then I might go behind the post again, and if you notice I have a lot of brown thread in there. I don't want that brown thread showing yet. I only want that brown thread showing at the head of the fly. So I'm going to place a little bit more dubbing just to get me forward a little bit. Let me get this dubbed on. And again, you could skip this step if you originally had your hackle tied on whenever you first tied in the post. Because I did not, this is an extra step, so I do want to mention that. So I did create this extra step myself, and it's something that you do not have to do. All right, I'll stop it there. I'm going to make simply 2 turns of this hackle, no more. After that second turn, I'm just going to stop it and pull the hackle back towards me. I do want to pick up all these other feathers and all these loose fibers, pull them straight up, let that initial hackle go forward, and then lock it in with approximately 5 or 6 turns. I can let go of all the others, then pull everything back so I can trim that out of the way. In fact, it pulled right off. Okay, I got all these fibers out of here. I want to make sure everything's locked in place. It still is. Now I'm just going to wrap back just a little bit to make sure everything is truly locked. I'm going to leave it wrapped back, and again I'm going to put just a little more dubbing. This is probably the third time I've said a little more dubbing, because I want to finish off that thorax the whole way up to the head of the fly with dubbing. So I want to make sure as these fish are looking at this fly, they see that natural tan color the entire way there. I'll pull everything back, bring that dubbing the whole way up to the eye, put in a half hitch, and whip finish. Trim my thread. You can see it looks like there was a guard hair that was stuck in my dubbing. So I'll just trim that out of the way so I have a clear look into the eye of the hook whenever I am putting my tippet in. Then I'm going to pull my post back forward just a little bit. This is one of the final steps of the fly, and then I'll examine it and pull out any of the little fibers that are all over the place. But for this final step, I'm going to be cutting the parachute. I'm going to make my initial cut approximately an inch up, and I'll stop it there. Now whenever I get to the water, if for some reason they're turned off by this fly, and I believe it's because of that post, and I think maybe they're keying on that post as a wing and not as something else, then I will simply, on the water, I have a pair of scissors that I carry, and I'll make sure that's an even cut on the water, and I'll trim a little bit more of that post away so that the fish are not seeing that post in case they want a little bit more of a low profile fly. So that is as low as on this post that I'll go. I just wanted to show you that now, since you're probably not going to be out in the water with me. Let me give you a full view of this fly, and I'll just point out a couple things to it. So when you look at this fly from the bottom, you can see some of those hackle fibers are jumping down there. That is okay. You can see the yellow ribbing. You can see the clear eye, and there's a brown head there. As I go back around, it's a really clear view of the parachute post from the side. And again, this is the normal perspective. As you see some of these feathers jutting down, if you don't like those there, simply pull them out. The one that I don't like is this one back here. It's just a little feather. It's some antron or something that's left from my dubbing. Because it's there, I'm just going to get rid of it. So an easy approach is just to take my scissors and trim it out of there. If you want to run some Velcro across the body of this fly to make it a little buggier, you definitely can. For my purposes though, however, I am finished with this fly. This was a hare's ear parachute. It is a hare's ear parachute. It's tied on a size 16. This is a D103BL dry fly and light nymph hook from Allen Fly Fishing, found at allenflyfishing.com. I do recommend this hook for this pattern. Thank you for viewing this YouTube tutorial on the hare's ear parachute. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them directly on this YouTube page, or you can email me at tcammisa@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody.